Hi, this is Naomi with Sword and Steel, and today we are going to be looking at all of the new Cities of Sigmar miniatures coming out. These were given to me by Games Workshop, so at the time of this video they are not out yet, coming out soon. We're going to be checking them out where I've got them all assembled for you. I'll let you know the assembly options that you have to think about for when you're assembling them yourself, anything that you might want to consider while assembling, and of course looking at the sculpts up close so that you can enjoy them with me. So we have the Freeguild Command Corps. We have Pontifex Zenestra. We have the Fusil-Major on Ogor Warhulk. We have the Ironweld Great Cannon. The Freeguild Fusiliers. The Freeguild Cavalier-Marshal. And this lady, Tahlia Vedra. Lioness is the Parch on Infernadine for Manticore. Remember, if you had any questions that I didn't cover in the video about these models or any of the other Cities of Sigmar models, because I have all of the new ones now, make certain to comment below. This is the Ironweld Great Cannon, and if you like artillery, I think this is a treat to look at. It's made up of many different parts, which you can keep apart before painting if you want to. The crew have a couple different ways they can each be built, with extra heads to choose from and a couple different poses based on their arm traces and the head orientations. One of them even being a fellow who isn't helping man the cannon at all, but is drinking from a pint of some kind and looking rather dead-eyed in my opinion. I did not glue any of the crew to the base and wouldn't glue the cannon itself to the base either until after it's painted, so you can get to all the details without trouble. You could also keep the shield separate until after painting, and even the gun as well if you wanted to. What choices you make for this piece, even the various ammunition you can place on the base with the cannon, is entirely up to your visual preference, since there are no rules that you have to choose from for this unit. It has only one way of being played. This is the Freeguild Cavalier-Marshal, and I think he looks great. I mean, his haircut is so similarly haggard to the Freeguild Marshal on foot that I'm beginning to think that they have the same blind barber that no one is willing to say it was time you retired. But you have the option of giving your Cavalier-Marshal a helmet or making him into a rather stunning headless horseman model. You can indeed keep the rider separate from the steed, which I always appreciate in a model. All the saddlebags and odds and ends are separate as well, so you can sub-assemble this fellow well to paint him in various parts if you wanted to. Any choices you make for him are completely for aesthetics purposes, since he does not have any weapon options to choose from. You will have to smooth down his cloak with multiple layers of plastic glue, because the cloak comes in two very obvious pieces. So very thin plastic glue or something like plastic putty to fill out the crevices of a join line later. Actually, there are so many models with cloaks in this range where you have to smooth out the cloak's join lines that I'll just add in the description to this video, a video that I've done just that and shown you how. This fellow is called the Fusil-Major on Ogor Warhulk, and can you imagine being in a crow's nest on an ogre's back while the ogre is on the move? No wonder there's a rope across the back of his crow's nest, so I can't see it helping very much when the ogre starts a full run. I think he's going to have to hold on for dear life, and I don't know how well his aim is going to be. You should definitely keep the major up top separate from the crow's nest until after you've painted him in the nest. And there's a couple different ways to assemble him. One has a shouting major with the same barber as the other leaders, and the ogre could have a top knot instead of helmet, with a face that really reminds me of Worf for some reason from Star Trek. The ogre could also have a different stance with the weapon and shield switching hands. I did not follow the guide in which arm should go with which look and which major should go with which ogre. And this is how I wanted to build him, and I could do it. I would suggest keeping the ogre's shield off his arm until after he's painted, I only assembled this fully to show you how it would look. These are the 10-man and woman unit of Freeguild Fusiliers, and there are a couple weapon options to choose from for some within their ranks. Firstly, the champion could be wielding a brace of pistols instead of the Fusil cannon like anyone else, which have more attacks and with a 3+ to hit and wound instead of a 4+. But since I plan to use this unit in a fortified position at some distance away, since the pistols have a 9-inch range instead of a 24-inch range, I will be choosing the extra Fusil cannon for me. The other choice you have to make is whether to add a standard bearer, which gives an extra 1 to bravery rolls. And since you do not lose your weapon by adding a standard, there is no reason not to build this fellow. So just build him. Besides those two options, though, every other choice you make is for looks alone. There are more than enough heads to choose from, and they can go on any body. So all the Fusiliers are monopose. They look similar enough that you'd never spot a duplicate if you changed up the head and, made the base even mildly unique. I think these would look great with a medal under their feet, personally. So I could place each of these properly onto their bases. I built their Pavis and the Fusilier separately. PVC, however you would like to pronounce it, lined them up on their base and then glued the Pavis in place. I'll glue the Fusilier in place once he or she is painted. There are female and male bodies amongst the ranks, some with a couple obvious feminine parts, so you may want to consider the head carefully when attaching it to the body. And lastly, the Black Powder Squire. This is not a model in that it has no rules, but instead acts as a marker for an ability you can use once in a battle, where you can reroll hit rolls for your Fusiliers until the end of that phase. Here we have the Great Herald of the Freeguild Command Corps. The Command Corps is made up of 6 models, and it pairs very nicely with a Freeguild Marshal with Relic Envoy, or Freeguild Marshal on Griffin, since it can give that Marshal a ward of 4+. Each of the models in this kit have at least 2 ways of being built. Well, really only 2 ways of being built. Some with only a difference in head, others like the Great Herald and Archknife with different arm positions as well. This means you can make another of these kits and have them each look different. There are no weapon options for these models to choose from, so every choice you make is purely for aesthetics. The Arch Knight could be built as you see him here, or he could be built with a fish head and scaly cape. And though I am Lethis and therefore a portside city, I just prefer the bear helm and fur. But now I have a nice cape to use on someone. The other head for this model looks a lot like an Adepta Sororitas Dialogus, since she has short hair and spectacles. So that's where I'm going to be using her head. Oh, and putting on the little arms of his skeletal assistant was a little bit of a thing to do. You'll see. Just have patience. Maybe use tweezers. This is the War Surgeon of the Command Corps, and she has a fairly nice looking maskless head, but I loved the idea of wearing the quintessential Plague Doctor's mask. She is so cute with all her tools attached to her. I really enjoy this miniature, and we'll probably make a 50mm base that she can just scoot into for sisters as a hospitaller. I mean, they look close enough. It's fine. I'm doing it. And this is the last of the Command Corps models, the Mascot Gargoylian, the only one that has no options on how to build him. He is just as he is, though you could change him up by adding any or all of these guys to his base if you wanted to. This is a fun kit with all sorts of different models. I really enjoy it, and extra heads that are quite unique you could use anywhere. And now it's time to be unnerved by Pontifex Zenestra, Matriarch of the Great Wheel. There are not too many choices to make for this one. Just the heads on her bearers, where you can pick 2 among 4 options. Not that it matters, as you'd only have one of her on the battlefield anyway. She herself has only the head you see here, but if you wanted to change her up, the head is completely separate from the body, and you could do so fairly easily. This is definitely a model that you want to keep in pieces before you paint her, and the guide reminds you of this as you go. The bearers are a little awkwardly attached up to the shoulders of the palanquin, so I will personally be gluing them before I paint them, just because I want a seamless attachment at their shoulders, but the guide does suggest to paint them separately. She herself can be easily kept separate, as can the skeleton on the other side, who I did not at first glance notice is actually a skeleton of Zenestra herself. I do not know what is going on with that, since it only hints at the skeleton so far in the lore with the Cities of Sigmar battle tome, but I am so for learning more of this woman's backstory. Apparently there are rumors she was touched by Galmoraz itself, Sigmar's hammer. Either way, she is quite the model on the battlefield with a forward of 4+, and with her ability to deal mortal wounds to enemies within 3 inches of her, and her anti-wizard and priest abilities. I like her a lot. You let me know what you think of her. I like her. I think she's also really intimidating. Something about her. I'm intimidated. Maybe because she's just possibly so old with so much grim knowledge. She's cool. I like her. And lastly, of the new Cities of Sigmar miniatures is Tahlia Vedra, Lioness of the Parch. She has no options as it pertains to rules to choose from, but her weapon of office can either be depicted as the sword Parch tongue, like I chose for her, or the mace Warmaker, or the axe Justice, or the hammer of Zeal. I nearly chose the hammer to honor Sigmar, really, but I think I'd use her as a very cool Dungeons and Dragons miniature. I simply find the sword the coolest option. I chose to have her helmet on rather than off for the same reason. If you look carefully, you'll see that her helmeted option has the one eye covered as well, so it's still her under there. But for me, this allows me to make her as anyone, really, any leader, rather than just Tahlia Vedra specifically. Now, first things first, you'll want to keep the miniature off the base. To paint her, you'll need to use the Manticore, named Infernadine, to align the pieces on the base, besides this little guy, whom you can put anywhere, by settling the Manticore in place carefully and using extra thin plastic glue and allowing it to pool underneath the terrain, and then keeping the Manticore and the terrain in that position until the terrain is dried to the base. That's just the easiest way to make sure everything is in its position. And as you notice, the wings can be kept separate as well. They are such beautiful wings. Oh my gosh. Also separate is her throne saddle, and there are parts on that you would want to separate as well. She herself can be separate from her seat. The straps at her ankles make a barb of sorts to the seat, so you'd only want to attach her there when you're good and ready for her not to move again. And you'll want to keep this back piece separate so you can paint the heads of the traders that she's collecting before gluing them in behind her on the back of the throne. And that's that. I would say she is quite the epic miniature. She actually took less time than I expected to assemble her, but I bet she's going to take an awfully long time to paint. Thanks for watching. Make certain to comment below if you had any questions, concerns, comments, which one was your favorite, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye! Thank you very much to the YouTube members and patrons of the channel. I really appreciate your support. It means so much to me that you would like to keep this channel going. I really appreciate it and hope that you are going to have a fantastic hobby time. People, oh, definitely every knight needs her squire. I need a squire. Come here. Come on. You can do it. Oh, I did it. Oh. Do do do. Do do do. Do do do. Do do do. Mm-hmm. 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 Oh, that's a fair bit of weight. I have to measure myself one day and find out how much I'm actually carrying. It's my undergarments. Da, da. Do, do.